First, I want to thank you all for taking time out of your busy life to join me on a Tuesday evening to talk about a subject. I started this subject actually last week when we had come back from the Power Networking Conference, but I really didn't feel like I got it out. For one, coming back from the conference, rushing into a meeting or webinar like this, you can touch on some things, but I felt a little rush afterwards. Hey, Dejan, I see you at work, so I know you're probably going to be in video only mode. But if you got any questions or anything towards the end, please feel free to type it in. But I wanted to make sure I give this subject its proper due. I think it's timely. For me, it's critically important. I've been studying this subject matter for, I don't know, 25 years. Ever since, and it's derived from, or I got it from Stephen Covey's work. If you're not familiar with Stephen Covey, you probably I'm looking at these faces. I can't think of anybody on here who probably wouldn't at least be familiar with his work of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Anybody who's been in the business world, professional world, corporate world, sales training, 9 out of 10 times, somewhere in that office, they wanted you to try to study 7 Habits of Highly Effective People to kind of help the organization run a whole lot smoother. And so the work that he did prior to him passing away, his final book was called The 8th Habit. And the 8th Habit, he said it took the 7 habits and it made them 3-dimensional, because the 8th habit is finding your voice and helping others find theirs. So it's really in 2 parts. It's moving from effectiveness to greatness. And in order to move from effectiveness, which was the base of the 7 habits, of highly effective people, after you become effective, now it's time to move into greatness. And how do you move into greatness? You move into greatness by finding your voice. Some would say that's enough, right? Finding your voice, I'm great, I can do this. But he talked about greatness in terms of being mastery. And so most of us, if you studied anything, any arts, martial arts, or anything like that, you're not considered a master until not only have you mastered the subject, but you can teach others, or you have students and you teach them how to master whatever the discipline is. Then you can truly say that you're a master. And so in this case, he divided the 8th habit into 2 parts, right? First part, finding your voice. But then the second part was inspiring. He used that language, inspiring, because you can't really make people find their voice. So the only thing you can do is hopefully inspire them to find their voices. And when we're talking about voice, and this is why I said I want to come back to this subject, because I really didn't want to skim over this last week, especially with all of this noise in the world. The hardest thing to do in a world that's as noisy and as busy as the world that we're in today is kind of being able to find your voice, meaning find your entire being, becoming a whole person, mind, body, spirit. Stephen Covey also added soul into his definition of the whole person, where you're just in complete alignment with your talents, your gifts, your purpose. And when you do that, and then now you're able to put that into the world, life becomes a lot easier for you. It's more fulfilling for you. Everything just begins to click. And I would tell people over this 25-year study of this thing, most times when things are not clicking, or if things are not easy, or if we're hearing these other voices in our head, like, people don't value me, or people don't appreciate me, or I'm feeling stuck, or I'm in a rut, or any of those types of voices that we hear in our minds, most times it's because we haven't discovered our voice. Something has stifled our voice. And most people will go through their entire lives and never find their voice, never find their purpose, never find meaning, never find themselves fulfilled. Some of us, And I've been privy to be around people like this who found their voices, but have run into obstacles or some challenges or some difficulties, and you kind of stumble and some things don't go the way that you want, and you can lose your voice, right? And then now you got to try to regain your voice. And some people can't get that footing back. I've seen people do that who are riding high, I mean, on cloud nine, and then a tragedy happens or something happens, and they stumble and they lose their confidence. Is really where this is rooted in. Where you lose your confidence, you don't really get back on the horse to find your voice. As I mentioned, some people never find their voice, but I've also been privy to people who find their voices and they live according to the talents, gifts, skills, and strengths that God has given them. I was with a few about a week and a half ago now at the Power Networking Conference. Whenever I'm around Dr. Frazier, you can tell that here's a man that over his past 40 years, he's discovered his voice, he's found his voice, and there's nothing else in the world that he would rather do. I mean, he's there sitting in the front row from 8 o'clock in the morning till teaching people in his suite at 12 o'clock at night. I mean, 14, 16, 18-hour days, it seems like, and he's not tired. And it's because he's getting energized. And so that's another key indication of finding your talents, your gifts, your voice, your sweet spot. Is if it energizes you, it motivates you, it stimulates you, then you're working in your area of gifting, right? You're working in your area. I think Cheryl likes to use the term, Cheryl Parks, a member of the mob, she likes to use the term, your zone of genius, right? That's one of her phrases that she loves to use. And so when you're doing things that deplete you of your energy, that zap you, that frustrate you, and this also includes people. When you're around people that feel like they're pulling all of the energy out of you, they don't stimulate you, don't energize you, don't motivate you, then you're around the wrong people and you're doing the wrong thing. And so that's why it's critically important that I think we should find our voices. Now, the reason this has been burning in me, because ever since I've stumbled into my voice, right? It's a work in progress. I think all of us could say that we're works in progress, but I definitely feel like I'm on the right track. That I could do this forever. I mean, this is Brother B's thing. Brother B you can get off this Zoom. I can get off this Zoom. I can get on a plane that just like Jordan, I can go somewhere. I could talk about all of these different things with entrepreneurship and all of the things that I study, get on a plane, come right back, get on a Zoom, and I'm not tired. And you're like, what is wrong? This dude is a nut. But no, that's what fuels me. That's what gives me life and energy. And so as I've stumbled into this and I started working with our people in this capacity, building community, masterminds, networks. I've had a few people, or we've had a few people who were in the mob and they discovered their voices, or they were beginning to discover their voices, and then they passed away. So that was the thing that was really bothering me about this message, is because some of us find our voices much later in life. And then sometimes at that moment, our health may be compromised to where we now can't fully live so here it is. I mean, that's why it pains me, because I worked very hard with people who were in corporate America for 20 plus years, or people who thought they were doing something, working in one area of business, people who were retired, but then they got around other people who were finding their voices and exploring their talents and gifts. And we were talking about it and helping each other. And you could just see the light bulb come on in their faces. You could see the confidence. And I mean, it was like they were brand new people. It was the perfect illustration of transformation for me, to watch people transform their lives from one state to another state, to now where they're energized. They feel, you can see them that they're operating with some level or degree of mastery, where they probably came in here and they weren't saying anything. They were all quiet and real meek and not saying much of anything. And then a few months go by, and then all of a sudden they're commanding the room and they're speaking with authority and confidence because they found their thing. And as I mentioned, unfortunately, we've had a few people who found their voices and got on that journey, but then their health was compromised and they did not, for whatever reason. I mean, I can't, who knows what the God has in store, right? I don't know that, but from our vantage point, just looking from the outside in to see someone find their voice, begin to live that life, begin to experience that type of joy and excitement and energy, but then all of a sudden something happens to their health and then they're no longer with us. That stung me a little bit and it still stings. And so I said, you know what? So I know in every opportunity I get to express this, especially knowing that there are business models that can help us to find our voices and do the things that some of us think that we can't do because it doesn't seem possible. Brother B, there's nothing, don't I need $1 million to do that? Don't I need a staff of 100 people to do that? Or don't I need office? No, we've entered into an area, a phase of life with the advancement of technology and knowledge and wisdom and experience that you can literally find your voice and find your tribe and live your best life. I don't want to make it seem hyperbolic, but almost without leaving from the comforts of your home. But we want you to get out, right? We don't want nobody to be a hermit sitting behind a computer screen all day. However, we all have the opportunity to experiment, explore, share our thoughts and ideas without the fear of being censored, without the fear of being ridiculed and judged. And if you are ridiculed and judged, it goes back to my earlier point, those are just not your people, right? You're going to find your people. There's close to 8 billion people on this planet now. And I don't know, let's just say over half, I want to be conservative. We'll say at least over half has some access to the internet so that you can find your people, or put better, your people can find you. If you do this right, it's not about you finding your people. When you find your voice, you attract the people who are supposed to hear you. It's almost like the radio dial, right? The right frequency. Once you get it on the right frequency, it's crystal clear. It may be fuzzy when you're supposed to be on 97.9 and you're on 97.5, right? It's kind of fuzzy a little bit, but if you keep tweaking the dial, keep fine tuning the message, keep fine tuning your voice, then it hits, and then the right people hear you, you connect with the right people, you're continuing to grow and develop, your voice becomes clearer, more profound, more articulate. And the reason I think it's so advantageous I'm going to go out on a limb and say that all of you are probably in my age range. I'm either a little bit older than you or a little bit younger than you, but I ain't got you by no 15, 20 years. I don't think there's nobody on here that I got by 15, 20 years. Now, that would be a new thing. So I'm thinking that there's a range. And I say that because I want you to think about that. There's a range of people who have shared experiences, who have shared interests, who are like-minded, who have shared values that would resonate with you so well that the old way that people keep telling you to market, that you're chasing people who have no interest. That's the hardest thing to do, is to sell somebody something and they don't even want it. And here's the thing, they don't even know that they don't want it. They just look at you as an annoying pest, right? You're chasing, trying to convey a message that they're not interested in. However, the internet and this space allows us to set the dial and to attract the people who at least See, you wouldn't even get on this call if you didn't think that there was something, right? It's either me personally, right? It's either your brother saying, okay, well, let me just see what the brother talking about, or this voice thing sounds interesting, right? So it's something that you've even thought about, you've either read, you've even discussed it, or in the quiet of your own mind, you say, man, this, I'm finding my voice, or I found my voice, but hell, nobody else understands me. And here go Brother B, and he talking about voice. And I was just thinking about this last week. So there's something about this frequency, right? This channel that we're on, it makes it work for us. And so I'm saying, I'll say this is an example for you that whatever it is that you do, whatever your gifting is, your talent, your skill, your strength, the message that you want to articulate, when done properly, packaged properly, you could attract the right type of people. You don't have to chase people to deliver your message. And here's the best part. It is so fun, so much fun, so exhilarating that if you do this right, you continue to grow, you continue to develop. In fact, you become, Les Brown would say, you become hungry, right? Les Brown, like, you got to become hungry. That's how Les would say it. And it's the truth. What happens is I'm more hungry, more thirsty to discover and find better ways, more knowledge, more wisdom, the right type of people to fit what I'm doing. I'm more hungry now than ever because the time is right, but this model feeds that in me. And so I think it'll do the same for you. So I didn't mention those names, and I won't mention those names, but that was the reason why I wanted to come back and talk to you about this. And again, briefly, I'm almost done because I want to hear from you on how you're rating yourself. Matter of fact, this is the question I'm going to pose to you, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. How would you rate where you are right now in finding your voice and sharing your voice? And as a, I guess you could say, part B to that question, after you rate yourself, if you haven't found your voice, if you feel stifled, if you feel like you can't be in an environment where you can express your voice, or you don't have a business or an operation or an organization where you're not speaking the language, or the people feel like you're speaking Guiblanese, right? It just doesn't resonate with the people that you're around. Why not? Why are you still there? Right? These are the questions I had to ask. Why am I still, Brother B? Why are you still here? This is not making sense. This is insanity. They don't hear me. So I have to find the right place to express my voice. So my question to you after, I've got one more thing to say, but after I say that one more thing, um, how would you rate yourself and where you are in finding your voice? I don't know if there's a scale of a 1 to 10, right? But how do you feel about it? Are you expressing? Are you doing what you love to do? Are you doing it with the people that you love to do it with? Have you used the internet to really bolster your message? I'll just say it directly, right? You try to kind of dance around this, but make money from it. Right? At the end of the day, that's really what you want to do. Can I make money from this thing? Right? Can it replace an income or increase an income that I'm getting in another area that I'm not happy or satisfied with? How do you rate yourself with that? Because if you got more to give. And when I say more to give, I'm talking about more intelligence, more talent, right? More creativity. I've found that the more and more I do this, the more and more creative I get, and the opportunities to be creative are expanded. I almost have to hold myself back because sometimes when I'm approaching certain people for opportunities to do some collaborations and joint ventures, they don't see it, right? So you got to get comfortable with saying, everybody's not going to see how this works or how it can seamlessly fit to create the type of income or business that you desire. So you'd ask yourself those questions. I know you got more to give, more talent, more creativity, more intelligence. And when we talk about intelligence, again, that goes back to that Stephen Covey principle that we talked about earlier of spiritual intelligence, relational intelligence. Of course, we're talking about intellectual intelligence, but there are these gifts, all of these different intelligence that we have that some would use to say that these are like soft skills or skills that didn't matter as much. If you notice, these skills were non-important in the earlier parts of the industrial age, the industrialized revolution. The things that were most important then were things, right? The tractor was more important than how you thought about it, right? Your wisdom didn't matter at all if you had to work on a line at Chrysler. You know, we don't even want to hear your wisdom. Can you just bolt them two pieces of metal together? But now that we've moved out of that era of the industrial age and we've moved into an era of knowledge, wisdom, and education, self-education, where right now, even the fact that you're on here, you know that you can get off of here and go and study everything that I'm saying. You can look up the people, you can buy the books where people can literally self-educate themselves on any subject that they want to. Now, it's your experience is extremely important. In fact, Anitra, I was thinking about this earlier today. Now that we got Chat GPT, because I had people used to always say, well, you know, content is king, right? That was a content is king. And yeah, you know, having content, you know, it's right up there. But what's more important today is context, right? It's how you, right? It's how Kay is going to take what somebody else already knows. Because here's the thing, I know that I'm not, you got to get out of your own, you know, the ego has to really die when you start doing this type of business. I would be completely delusional if I thought I was saying something that I know that you all are not familiar with. You'd be like, this brother lost his mind if he thinks he's saying something completely new that I haven't heard before, right? So you've heard it before, but what you haven't heard is my context, right? How I'm phrasing it and how my context and my experience can help you. Now, again, I want you to take the shoe off my foot and put it on your foot. You have context, you have experience that even with the same knowledge that you think that nobody would pay for, the same intellectual property that you think that no one would invest in because it's all online. You're right. They won't pay for just the content, but they'll pay for your context. They'll pay for your voice, right? Again, how you think about it. We have a phrase that we stole from Dan Sullivan that we use in the mob. It's called thinking about your thinking, right? How do you think about these things and how do you frame it? What is the context and experience? And trust me, the most valuable asset that you and I have today is our experience. We're standing on mountains of value. We've been using the other terminology. We're standing in the middle of acres of diamonds. But if we're just looking at our experiences, and I'm talking about the nuanced things, there's some things that we've experienced. Some of us may say, you might even be embarrassed to talk about it. You're like, I ain't gonna say that, Brother B. I ain't telling nobody about that. I'm not telling that story. But it is that story, that nuanced experience that is properly packaged and shared that's going to make all the difference for anybody. That's your differentiator. Right now, it's not the words on the page. It definitely ain't Zoom, right? This technology, right? Because everybody can do Zoom, right? So what's the difference? What's the differentiator? It's your voice. And it's the process of finding your voice. And here's the last thing I'm gonna say. I'm gonna look at the clock. Because the process of finding your voice, and this is something that I had to do, was very interesting. We go through some exercises in the mob, but the one thing about finding your voice, you have to be willing to put yourself under the microscope. You have to be willing to look at yourself in ways that you've never looked at yourself before, because that's the only way for you to discover your unique talents, your unique gifts, your unique strengths, is that you have to, one of my other teachers, he used the phrasing, you have to go through this process of self-examination, then self-analysis, and then self-correction, right? But if we never put ourselves under that microscope, it's very difficult to find our voice. And sometimes you need people who will put you through the ringer to say, you know what? I know you like to do that, Dijon, right? But you know what? I've been knowing you for 15 years and you do this a whole lot better. You're overlooking this, but you do this so easy. And Dijon will be like, well, what do you mean? I do this regularly. It's so effortless. It's so easy to me that I don't even think of it as being valuable or somehow being able to add value to somebody else's life. And that's the point. Most of our God-given unique talent, strengths, gifts are things that are so easy to us, things that we can talk about, things that we love to do that we're very passionate about, but we don't really see the value in that. It takes other people to say, you know what, I know you kind of like to do that because there's a bag over there, right? I've had to have this conversation with a lot of people. Yeah, I know that there's a bag over there, right? There's a lot of money over there, but you can see the frustration, the anxiety, the stress that comes with that bag. He said, but you know what? You might want to try this, but you're like, but Brother B, ain't no money there. Not initially. That's the whole thing. You have to develop this thing. It's built to suit. It really, you're building this thing around you. And the bag is not there initially, but as you progress, as you move forward, you begin to generate the income from the things that you, in fact, sometimes you get embarrassed because it's like, wait a minute, I do this anyway, and now you're going to pay me for it. Right. I'm going to tell you, that's the hard part, is to now realize that you don't have to be in the Olympics to get paid. Right. You know, I need the degree of difficulty that some of us are going through just to generate the type of income that we want. You would think that we're trying to qualify for the Olympics. And the thing that is easiest for us, the thing that flows for us, the thing that we are like really a rock star in, we run from. And that's our voice. That's the thing that we're supposed to be leaning more into. And then you'll start to see the results from it. So let me stop right there because I want to be respectful of the time. I want to leave